Hello and welcome to this episode of Shatter Dice Reviews. Although today's not going to be a review, we're going to be doing something a little bit different today. We're going to be taking a look at the Cyberpunk 2077 board game crowdfunding project that just recently concluded on GameFound. So I'm a big fan of Cyberpunk 2077, the video game, and this is a project I really am very interested in. It looks like a very interesting game, and I just thought I'd share my thoughts on it. If you've missed the crowdfunder, then I believe you will still be able to back this project when the pledge manager opens up. The plan here is basically to go through this, have a little breakdown of it, look at what the gameplay might be like. There's plenty of gameplay videos on YouTube for those of you who are interested. Sadly, I do not have a demo copy of this game. So taking a look at this, as if you back this as well as the base game, you will be getting the stretch goals, which Go On Board have divided into 4 separate expansion packs, all of which you'll get as stretch goals, but these will be available later at retail. And we'll look at these as we go along. You get a few of these exclusive items as a backer, so you get a couple of new characters and a few new game modes. There's not a lot of exclusives, which is kind of a good thing because it's nice to get something exclusive as a backer, but it is nice if you miss this to be able to get most of the content at retail. So we've got this picture here of the board set up now. This image looks a little bit on the messy side. They've really thrown a lot of the components into this screenshot here. But we've got the board there in the middle with some miniatures. We've got these dashboards for your characters, the usual sort of a board game setup you'd expect to see. So we've just got the little introduction to the game here. So visit Night City in this fast-paced, cooperative, story-driven, tactical action game. Take on the role of V, Panam, Jackie, or Judy. Hit the major leagues, become a legendary edge runner, and cross the boundary between oblivion and immortality. Okay, cool, nice little introduction there. It's 1 to 4 players, 60 to 90 minutes, and age 16 plus, so that's pretty good because Cyberpunk 2077 is quite a mature themed game, so at 16 plus, this game will hopefully be a little more in line with the video game. So here's what you get in the game should you back it. So you've got the standard edition for $79 and the deluxe edition for $139. Now I'm going to say here that the deluxe edition is honestly, if you are interested in this game, it's probably the way to go. I do feel this game is a bit overpriced, particularly if you buy it at retail for these prices. And we'll see why that is in a moment, but we'll just cover this first. So both editions have 5 playable characters, 13 missions, 16 enemies, 1 boss, and the Afterlife mission generator, which allows you to create your own missions. So you get 5 player miniatures, 4 double-layered player boards, 2 enemy boards, 2 terminal boards, 9 tiles, 348 cards, 135 tokens, 1 rulebook, 1 Night City map book with 50 plus locations, 30 pages. You've got 92 plastic cubes, 49 dice. 49 dice, wow, I had not noticed that before. That is a lot of dice. But it'll become clear why there's so many dice shortly. Paperboard enemies, 16 enemy tokens, 1 smasher token, 1 basilisk token, 4 minotaur tokens, 8 health counters of bullet-shaped dice. So in the standard edition, the map tiles you get, there are 8 double-sided board tiles, and it refers to these as paper components. So I don't know whether that means these are going to be like kind of very thin paper. I would suspect they'll be kind of like playing card stock. You get 1 starter tile and 8 tunnel tiles. And then for the mission components, you get a Minotaur board, Minotaur HP track. The Minotaurs are like these big sort of mech robots. Smasher board, which will be for Adam Smasher, who is no doubt going to be the boss, and a Basilisk board, and the Basilisk is like a big tank that, from what it looks like, you get to ride around in. The deluxe only edition. Now, if we look at the differences here, so you've got thick paperboard components rather than paper components. So I'm assuming thick paperboard is basically going to be like your standard map tiles that come with many sort of a dungeon crawler type games. Your Descent 2nd edition and things like that. So you get 8 double-sided board tiles, 1 starter tile, and 1 tunnel. It's basically all the same stuff. And then you get plastic components. So instead of just having tokens for the enemies, you have 16 enemy miniatures, 1 smasher miniature, 1 basilisk miniature, 4 minotaur miniatures, 4 plastic base rings, 8 health counters with bullet-shaped dice, and 8 health counters in miniatures bases, which those, if we just look at this picture up here, that will be referring to these bases that the miniatures sit in, which is, it's kind of a nifty idea to have the health dial on a base, but honestly, these are ugly as sin. These huge, thick, chunky bases with these big dials in them. There surely was a better way to do this. Like maybe a plastic ring the base clicks into, and you can rotate the base to reveal a number or something like that. It's just, I don't know, I don't think I'd be using those with this game. They just look really ugly on the table. You know, I'm sorry, well done for the effort, but it's not for me. So yeah, basically the difference between the standard version and the deluxe version, as you can see there, is essentially that you get miniatures with it, or at least miniatures for the enemies. The standard version does include miniatures for the heroes, but not for the enemies, and it's a big price jump as well. You know, that like $139. That's a lot of money. But there is a reason I say that the deluxe edition is probably the one worth getting, and we'll cover that in a little while. That'll be more towards the end of the video, because the real reason, the real problem I have with the standard edition is that it comes with tokens, not standees. You know, you'd expect normally a standard edition would have enemy standees. Instead, this just uses tokens that sit flat on the board, and as well as like not looking as nice, that is actually going to affect your gameplay in this game. But first, let's move on. So that's what you get in the box. Like I say, it is expensive. I think what justifies this price point, this $139, is you get a lot of stretch goals with this. So included in that price, you're going to get a lot of stuff additional to the base game. If Go On Board release this to retail with these prices of $80 and $140, that just seems... I know it's a big IP as Cyberpunk, but that seems like a lot of money. Does $140 for that deluxe edition based on what you're getting? It's not like, you know, 16 enemy miniatures. It's not like this game is jam-packed with, you know, tons and tons of plastic miniatures that sort of justify the price point. But for the crowdfunding backing, then it's probably fair to say I think you will be getting value for money with that price. So if you want to go all in and back just absolutely everything that they are releasing for this game, you can spend $400. So yeah, if you're a millionaire, then fantastic. Why not? Why not? Just buy some gold bullion too while you're at it. But you do get absolutely everything with this, and they've also sweetened the deal with this little exclusive diorama here of V and Adam Smasher fighting, which is, I must admit, a really awesome looking little dioramic miniature. I don't imagine that's to be used in the board game. It's probably just something to sit on your shelf. You can, if you like the look of all the gameplay stuff, you can get the gameplay all in, which doesn't include some of the extra products they've released, such as a terrain pack. This just gives you all of the gameplay components, and you get a little exclusive with that as well. This Gary the Prophet miniature, who's like he's a character from the video game, who's like a crazy conspiracy theorist, and from the looks of it, you get him, and he kind of adds like a little sort of new bonus game mode to the gameplay. So here we have got the add-ons. So you've got the Phantom Liberty expansion, which takes place in the Phantom Liberty expansion to the video game, the Trauma Team expansion, which lets you play as the militarized paramedics of Cyberpunk 2077, so basically a hospital staff running around with machine guns. You've got the Edge Runners expansion for the characters from the anime Cyberpunk Edge Runners. We'll come on to that later. Johnny Silverhand and the NCPD expansion, which includes some missions for Johnny Silverhand, and you have the NCPD as a new enemy type, so that's kind of cool. That's, you know, it's always nice to have new enemies. And then you've got these two male V and female V armed with mantis blades. So these are the add-ons that don't come in the gameplay all in. And you've got a terrain pack here, which includes plastic doors and the such like, a neoprene playmat, you know, this set of 4 dice trays with some nice cyberpunk artwork on them. So let's have a look at these stretch goals that have become available. So I'm going to try to group these just to keep things a little more tight in this video. So first, let's take a look at the new characters that have been unlocked. If we look down here first, we'll take a look at Dante Caruso. So this is a new character. He is a GameFound exclusive, and I believe this guy is based on the musician who made the music for Phantom Liberty or something like that. It's a really cool miniature. I really like that pose on the miniature, and I like his little waistcoat here. He looks, I don't know, he looks almost like a Wild West gunslinger of some sort. So I like that miniature. Not too sure what he does, what's special about him, but most of the characters have like their own sort of little specialty. So, you know, it's probably worth covering a little bit about the gameplay, just to give you an idea. So in the game, you will be playing cards. You can see one of them here. So each player will play a card on their turn, and the cards have no text on them, which is, initially that's going to be a bit of a problem because you have to learn all the new icons and what they mean, but it is nice that you don't have to kind of read something. Once you know what you're doing, you'll be able to look at this card and know exactly what it does. So if you look at this one, for example, the icons here, these red icons, are damage icons. So this card deals damage, and the little white foot, as of course I'm sure you can guess, is a movement. So with this card, you'll be able to play a certain amount of these symbols. Basically, if you look, the symbols are arranged in rows, and as you go through the course of a game, you will level up your skills in the different attributes. So if you level up your red skill tree, you'll be able to use more of the red symbols on a card. Meaning essentially, at level 1, you will use this top row of the red card here, and then at level 2, you will use the top and second row, and at level 3, you'll use all 3 rows. So essentially, when you play this card at level 1, you'd be able to deal 2 points of damage, and that's all it would do. By the time you reach level 3, you would actually deal all 4 points of damage and be able to move. Basically, as each game, you will be sort of leveling up a little bit. Most of the characters have like their own special gimmick, their own special symbols maybe on their cards. I can't see what Dante Caruso's do that I can see. What other characters we looked? Okay, so there's T-Bug as well. T-Bug is a netrunner who you work with in the video game for a short while. She doesn't last long, unfortunately, but they've brought her here into the board game, and she is a pretty cool character. In fact, she was criminally underused in the video game. And if we look, with T-Bug, you get 2 miniatures. There's T-Bug's miniature, which, honestly, this picture of the miniature looks awful because she's got this huge rifle in one hand as she's running. It just looks really awkward and unbalanced. However, Go On Board must have listened to somebody complain about this or something, because here we can see this completely different miniature of T-Bug where she's holding a rifle in both hands. So I'm guessing they have listened to some feedback and redone the miniature, which gives me hopes for the Edgerunners miniatures. Now, you can also see she's got this little like pet droid, and this is a little droid used in the video game to like help you do stealthy stuff. It like sneaks around and goes through air vents and things like that. And looking at T-Bug's cards, she has this special symbol here, which looks as if that's going to allow you to control the flathead. So it's going to be like a little companion, like your little pet robot dog, basically. And we can also see this token here with the line of sight with the dash going through it. So this is a flathead camouflage token. Another little cool thing about that flathead robot is, from the looks of it, it's going to be able to turn invisible and sneak around. So then we've got River Ward, who is the police officer you work with for a little bit in the video game. Really cool miniature here as well. I really like this one. I love the detective coat and the way he's holding his... It's just every stereotypical detective pose ever, like pistol raised to the side of the head, long coat on. looking very gritty, and he's got like the one cyber eye as well. I do love how River Ward has this kind of leather detective coat, but it's got this big fur collar around it that makes him look almost like a pimp, rather than a police officer, which I find quite funny. But I really like that miniature. It is really, really good pose there on that. So River Ward has these investigation cards, which, as we can see if we read here, like search the rooms, stand on B while having 0 HP to pick up any loot token from the B tile. So River Ward is going to have this ability that allows him to loot a bit more, which is pretty cool looking. So that'll be nice. Yeah, River will probably be a fairly fun character to play as if you like going around snagging lots of loot. And from the looks of it, his card here, this orange card, has this symbol which looks like the symbol with like the dash through it. So I'm guessing if you use this card as River and you play this ability, then maybe he can move past enemies and they don't detect him. Like I say, won't be sure how a lot of this stuff works until the sort of the rules and things are released, but that looks pretty interesting. Alt Cunningham, another fantastic miniature here with Alt Cunningham. I love the two pistol pose. So Alt Cunningham is like a hacker, a netrunner in the video game from Johnny Silverhand's past. So she's from like more of the old crew from like, instead of 2077, I think it's like 2020 or something, where her storyline takes place. And it looks like she has got, from these icons, I'm going to assume that one allows her to open a door, perhaps anywhere on the board, like without being next to it. No idea what this little plus orange symbol means here. And then she has this special token, which I believe is a cyberdeck token. So I guess her cyberdeck is going to work a little bit differently to the main characters. We'll cover that in a little while, but yeah, I think that's an overlay for the player board by the looks of it. And then she also has her shard card, which not too sure what that does, but I know shards are related to leveling up in this game, so I'm guessing it will allow her to level up more easily perhaps. And lastly, we will take a look at Goro Takemura. So Takamura is a bodyguard for the Arasaka Corporation, who you end up working with through various plot mechanics in the video game. So they're going to introduce him here. Another really cool miniature here. It's a great like samurai pose with his katana. Looks really cool. So the kind of the gimmick with Takamura, I think, is mostly going to be on his cards. And if we look here, we can see he's got this red card with these two unique icons. And from what I've looked into, I believe this top icon would mean that you move Takamura into the space with an enemy guard. So it's like it's potentially faster movement. It just gets you straight into the same location as a guard. And then this kind of katana symbol, this sword, this slashing sword, I believe means he instantly kills an enemy in his space. So, Takamura is probably going to be a very powerful fighter, particularly with a card like this, where you can move directly into the space with an enemy and then just kill them with one hit. So, hopefully that won't be too much of a problem for balancing issues. I imagine he won't have many of those cards in his deck, but it's pretty cool. So, those are the expansion characters. The main 4 characters that come with the game will, of course, be V, who you will be able to play as a male or female variant of V. And now I haven't explained too much about the gameplay so far. I'll do that in a little while, but I'm sure so far you've gathered that this involves playing cards, and these cards have different colours. You can see here on this card he's got kind of the red damage symbol and this green symbol here, which signifies player's RAM, and RAM is basically what you use to cast spells, essentially. If this was a fantasy game, RAM would be mana points and quick hacks would be spells. That's basically how they work. So RAM is a resource you gather through the game. Anyway, RAM, as you can see, is green, and damage is red. So normally you get damage on red cards and RAM on green cards. Well, V's special gimmick is that his cards have 2 colours on them. So if you notice here, we've got this one's green and red. And of course, that makes him a bit more versatile, or him or her, whichever variant you want to play as. So V is the kind of more versatile character of the group, who can have these different combinations of colours on one card. Then we've got Judy Alvarez. again, one of the main characters from the video game. She is the kind of the main hacker character of the video game who you work with. And so her card deck clearly reflects this. She's going to have lots of abilities to gain RAM and use quick hacks. This symbol on her card here, I don't know if it's specific to her, but I'm pretty sure this little enemy face with the exclamation mark, I think that means it lets you move an enemy, so you can actually manipulate enemies on the board and allow yourself or your allies to sneak past. Panam Palmer, she's one of the nomads, like a travelling sort of this group of sort of travellers who go around doing mercenary work and things like that, and she is equipped with a sniper rifle, which plays into her character because, as you can see on this card here, it's got like this sniper symbol, and my understanding of this is playing this symbol allows you to deal damage to an enemy anywhere on the board, even if you can't see them. So it's kind of like she's got this big thermal scope on her sniper rifle. She's like seeing the heat signatures through walls and putting bullets in them. So that's pretty cool. She'll be very good at helping other characters out who are kind of dealing with combat and things like that. Then you've got Jackie Wells, who is like your number one buddy in the video game for the first part of it anyway. I like Jackie's miniature, this running pose with his two pistols aiming. Clearly shows you what he's all about, running and, run in there and shoot your guns and get the job done kind of guy. So his specialty, it's not so much as on his cards, it's actually that Jackie has these two pistols, like his personal pistols that he loves. And so to represent this, at certain points in the game, as well as playing cards for combat, you'll also roll dice, which I'll cover in a little bit. But he actually gets this special bonus die that represents his personal pistol. So Jackie will be rolling 2 dice instead of 1 when it comes to a dice rolling combat, which gives him a nice little edge. He's got that potential to do a bit more damage. So that's it for characters. So here's a breakdown of the campaign, how the game campaign will run. So essentially, what I really actually like about this, I think this is really clever what they've done here, is you have, I think it's 13 missions. Yeah, 13 missions is the main campaign, and you have a prologue, which consists of 3 missions, which is, of course, it's prologue, it's going to introduce you to the game and its mechanics. They should be fairly easy to play. Then, if you look, missions 4, 5, and 6 are all called Icebreaker. So it's kind of like you've got a series of little plot arcs that make up the overall campaign, and each one consists of 3 missions, which will probably tell its own little story, which is nice because it means you could play through the 3 Icebreaker missions, and then if you feel like it, you could take a break from the game, play something else for a few weeks, and then come back and then you can move on to the next one, which is Labyrinth, which mission 7, 8, and 9, Labyrinth. Looks like you're taking on a Militech here with some military hardware. And then you've got Unbreakable, which is another 3-mission arc, and looks like this will be involving that Basilisk tank. And then the finale is a 1 mission where, it's called Arasaka Tower. So no doubt that's the big assault on Arasaka Tower, and you'll be fighting Adam Smasher as the final boss. So that's pretty cool. I really like that structure. The campaign is made up of a series of 3-act stories that all will knit together and make one big story. So if you're a backer of the game, or if you decide to back this game when the Pledge Manager opens, you will also be getting these missions that were unlocked during the campaign. So there's another 3-act little story here, Ronin. Although I think Ronin actually, I do know what Ronin's about. I can't remember where I saw it now, but in the board game storyline, I know Goro Takamura has been captured, and you don't start with him as a playable character. You have to unlock him. So that's probably why he's very powerful, because you have to play through these Ronin missions to rescue him and unlock him, from what I understand. Which is pretty cool, makes for a nice little side mission there. And there's Parallax. I'm not sure what Parallax is about, what it relates to. And then you've got these bonuses here. Sandeyu, Oda, Chase Coley, Royce, Chimera, and Adam Smasher. All of these are bosses that are unlocked during the stretch goals. They all feature in the video game in some way, We'll have a little look at them in a moment. This one here, Oniris. I don't think this is a boss fight. This looks like the character in this picture is Evelyn Parker, who she is somebody you work with in the video game, and she sets up the initial heist that kind of kicks off the events of the video game. Now, the board game is going to follow a different storyline to the video game, kind of an alternate reality, so you're probably going to meet her in a different capacity and perhaps work with her in a different way. But one of the things that she did, or what was a heavy part of her storyline, were these things called brain dancers, where it's kind of like a virtual reality that you go into and do some detective work in there. It's like a recording of an event that's actually happened, and then you get to go and sort of explore it in kind of this virtual world. And you know, you can do all these sorts of things where you're just interacting with that environment. Those 3-act missions we talked about earlier, Icebreaker, Labyrinth, and Unbreakable. What is kind of cool as well is each one of these little 3-act structures introduces its own little mechanic for that story arc. So for example, in Icebreaker, it looks like they have incorporated this little mini game using these dice with these letters and numbers on. And if you've played the video game, this looks instantly familiar. From the looks of this, you'll be using these cards to maybe you roll the dice and then you have to try and place them in these positions here. But yeah, this looks kind of cool, and that looks like an interesting little extra bit to that game. So with the Labyrinth missions, you've got these Minotaurs, which are like these big robot droids, and from the looks of this, they're going to be like a special enemy that's appear in these missions. There's lots of tracks and tokens here. I'm not too sure how these guys are going to work, but looking at the coloured bases for them, it's probably going to be important which colour is which. And there's these tokens that are like lettered A and C, we can see there. So yeah, I'm not sure how this is going to work, but it looks interesting. They're very cool miniatures as well, these Minotaurs, these awesome big robots, nice big heavy enemy for you to fight. And then with the Unbreakable, we can see here it's the Basilisk tank. It's going to be it's got some new map boards, and the main thing about this, of course, is that tank miniature. So my guess is you will be stealing a tank and riding around in it blowing stuff up, which, you know, is going to be all-round fun. And the final mission, Adam Smasher, he's the boss, so he will have what looks like a special deck of cards. He will operate differently and probably be a lot more difficult than the regular bad guys you encounter in this game. So another one of the stretch goals that were unlocked were Max Tac, which Max Tac are like a super heavy special forces militarized sort of wing of the Night City police force. Very, very like tough customers. You know, it's like the idea in the whole storyline of Cyberpunk is that if Max Tac turn up, then everyone's in trouble. You know, there's no stopping them. So these guys being unlocked are going to make an interesting sort of enemy into the game, I think. Probably going to be very, very challenging. And then we've got some new bosses, Sendayu Oda. I'm not going to go over these too much. Chase Coley, Royce. I find this a bit not disappointing, but it's interesting that so Chase Coley is a cyber psycho you encounter in the video game, and he's just kind of a little boss fight. It's a fun fight, but he's in this like big exoskeleton. And now Royce is another character you also fight in the video game, and he's in the same thing. He's in the same exoskeleton. So I do hope that Chase Coley and Royce have some very different mechanics about the way they work, because they're both, you know, the notable thing about them is this exoskeleton they're walking around in, and if they both just kind of run the same way, if it's like the same boss fight, well, that'll be kind of disappointing. But we'll see. I'm sure Go On Board have made them substantially different from each other. Then we've got the new mission for the Chimera, which is another new boss fight. The Chimera was the giant robot spider tank that appeared in the Phantom Liberty expansion for the video game. It was a really cool boss fight, and hopefully that will translate well to the board game. Then if we take a quick look at the Night City map book. So as I mentioned earlier, this is where you'll go between missions, you know, sort of exploring the city. You've got these big event cards here. What are they called? I think they're called street stories, they call them. And this, if you've played any game like this, then you know what this is going to be. It's going to be a bit of story text giving you a situation. You run into some muggers or something, and then it's going to give you some options to pick from. Do you stop the muggers or do you help the muggers? Whatever it might be. And then once you've made your decision, you'll flip over the card and it'll give you an outcome. And there might be a little test to perform on this, different things you have to do. These just add a lot of flavour to the world. These are always nice, and the more of these you get, the better, because it's always such great fun to have these random events pop up. And obviously more of them means more variety. You won't be encountering the same ones as much. It says here there's 50 street story cards, so that seems like a reasonable amount. So let's quickly cover some game mechanics in this for the enemies. So you have two different types of enemy come with the base game. You've got Arasaka and Militech. Now, all of these enemies have 5 health. So you deal 5 points of damage, you remove them from the board. Cool. Other than that, at first glance, they just appear to be different miniatures, like there's nothing special about them. But what is quite clever of what Go On Board have done is, if we look at the Arasaka guards here, they have these black dice, which are their combat dice. And if we look at Militech, they also have these black dice, which are their combat dice. And if you notice, it looks as if Militech has this little grenade symbol on their dice. So each group of enemies in the game have their own specific combat die. I think this is actually really, really clever, because most games you would have an enemy character card, and you'd read that card and it would say, here's the special abilities they do, blah, 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 blah. This simplifies things so much. I mean, the enemies in this game are very simple. These aren't going to be, at least I don't think they're going to be, particularly deep, crunchy, tactical enemies with lots of different things they do. They've all got 5 health. They all kind of move around the board in the same way, for the most part, from what I've seen. But this little thing of having this different die, so it looks like Militech are going to throw grenades at you. What Arasaka do that's special, I don't know. But I think that's a really cool touch, because just having that different die gives you their special abilities when you roll it. That's what's going to make them different. There's a chance that a Militech guy is going to throw a grenade at you. So I think that's really cool. The stretch goals also include loads of new gear cards, so new weapons, new items, things like that. There's just all sorts of extras you get, like I say, new gear, new items, new quick hacks, new sets of cards that you can upgrade your hand with and play during the game, plenty of stuff. So I've rambled on a lot about what you get, and I'm sure you've got a bit of a sporadic sort of nonsensical talk about the mechanics of the game so far. So if we look here, we can see a nice shot of the player board. So we'll quickly go over the mechanics of kind of what you'll be doing on your turn, of the basics of how the game works. So we've got V here, and this is his player board called his Cyber Deck. I love the thematic design of this, like all the wires and cables and stuff. Looks really cool. And essentially you've got various slots on this board and tracks, so we'll go through those quickly. This one down here on the left hand side, that is your health track. So in this game you start with 4 health. Now the interesting thing is, when your health is reduced to 0, you don't get knocked out or anything like that. If your health goes below 0, you take one of these wound cards that you can see here, and you add that to your hand. So because the game is a card game where you'll be playing cards from your hand, of course, these are basically junk cards that when they get added into your deck and get shuffled in, you have this chance of drawing a card that basically does nothing. And each player has 3 of these wound cards. If you ever have all 3 cards in your deck and your health drops below 0 again, which would mean you would have to take a 4th card, because there are no cards left available, that character is killed, and that results in a mission failure. So I think that's a really cool damage mechanic, like a health mechanic they've introduced there. I think that's pretty ingenious way of doing it. Having your wounds are... Getting wounded means you're less effective, which makes sense. The more wounds you take, the less effective you're going to be in combat. Then we've got these 4 tracks here. So we talked a bit earlier about the different colours on the cards. So as you can see, you've got these 4 tracks: red, blue, green and orange. So when you play one of your cards, let's take a look at this red card here. Like I said earlier, it's got the 4 rows. So when you play that card, you will place it next to the cyber deck, and as you can see, those 4 rows of ability icons will match up with the 4 rows of these tokens. So as you play through a game, you will be unlocking new levels. Basically, you'll be moving these tokens down into the next space. And for example, when the red token, when you upgrade it enough, it'll reach that 4th space, and then you can use all 4 lines of icons on that card. That's the sort of in-mission leveling up. I think you level up your deck of cards between missions as the campaign goes on, so your character does get stronger, but each mission that you start will begin with your red, blue, green and yellow tokens in this top slot, so you kind of level up through the game as well as through the campaign, which I think it's pretty cool, that, so it allows you to sort of ramp up the action as a game goes on. This track along the bottom is your RAM track. So I mentioned RAM is essentially like basically like magic points. You use them to cast spells, or in this case, you use them to activate your quick hacks. And you'll accrue this over the course of a game and then spend it accordingly. And quick hacks, we can see, are these cards here. So we've got this quick hack card, and it's telling us there you spend 2 RAM. This next icon, I believe, means you use this quick card on a player other than yourself. And that symbol, if I'm not mistaken, means that an enemy does not roll their die during combat. So what you would do is you would spend 2 RAM, you would play it on another player, and then an enemy that they are in combat with would basically not get to attack that turn. So that's pretty cool how you can help each other out around the table with your quick hacks and your skills. If you look, there's a second row to this quick hack as well, where it costs 3 RAM, and this symbol means you played on yourself. So if you're in combat with an enemy, then you can spend 3 RAM and stop them from rolling their combat die. The fact that it's cheaper to play it on a friendly character incentivizes that cooperation around the table. So that's quick hacks and RAM. If we just go up to the top here, you can see a few of the other things. So let's start from the left here. This, I believe, is cyberware. This is like your implants, your robot body pieces, your arm guns and your arm knives and all that sort of business. And my understanding of these is that they will just be kind of a constant effect you can use. Electromag recycler. So I'm not too sure what these symbols mean, but I'm guessing that symbol perhaps means when you shuffle your deck, you get to use an interact icon. So we'll go over icons now, actually, just to cover them all, because this next token here is called a booster token. This has got 4 of the icons from the game. The red one deals damage, the green one gains you RAM, the orange one is the interact icon, the little orange hand. And this is used for a few things throughout the game. Opening doors, of course, is one of them. Oh, the white boot is movement. And the booster is something that you can use during your turn as a one-off. So what you would do is, say you needed to open a door but you didn't have the necessary card, you could use your booster, play this orange hand icon to open the door, and then play your card doing whatever there is on your card. And you would flip this booster token over to show that you have used it, basically that it's no longer used. And they fit into these nice little slots along the top of the board here. It's all very well designed. And the other thing about the interact symbol is if we look at these next set of cards here, these cards, which I must admit, these look very abstract. It'd be nice to have a picture of something on these, because these are crafting cards for the crafting that takes place over the course of a game. Like I say, they're a little bit abstract. There doesn't even seem to be a name of what it is you're crafting. It's just craft explosion. Craft 3 damage. I craft 3 damage. Okay. This would be nice if there was a little picture of a like a high caliber bullet or a grenade or something, or even just a title along the top of the card that tells us what this is we're crafting, what it is that does this 3 damage. And the way crafting works is, if you notice, there's these 2 interact icons on here. So what will happen is you'll get one of these crafting cards, I think it's from a random draw. You draw one, and then you can craft this over the course of your turn. Place 2 little cubes over these crafting icons here, and each time you play an interact icon, the little orange hand, you can use it to remove one of those cubes, and once both symbols are uncovered, you can then play this card at any time. So, as a little example, if we look at this card from earlier that we looked at, this red one, and if we say we are a level 1 character in red, so all this card will let us do is deal 1 damage and move 1 space. If we've crafted this item here, whatever it is, if we've crafted our 3 damage, then you could use this card to move 1 space and deal 1 damage, and then immediately play this on the same turn to deal 3 damage, giving you a total of 4 damage. And of course, if you have your booster available, that can also be played to deal a damage. And as I mentioned earlier, all enemies in this game, or at least all basic enemies that we've seen so far, have 5 health, which means through crafting this 3 damage, having your booster, and playing this card, you could run into a room and then immediately deal 5 damage, just one-shotting that guard and taking them out. So there's lots of synergy and combinations that are going to be available in this game. So before we move on to some of the other bits and pieces, here you can see a weapon card for the weapon Archangel. Now I mentioned earlier this game comes with 49 dice, which is a lot of dice. You have a special die, this grey one, which is your standard combat die that you will be rolling. And I know I've been talking about playing cards for dealing damage a lot, and now I'm talking about dice, so it's like, you might be thinking, how does this game work in combat? Do I roll dice or do I play cards? Well, I'll explain that really quickly now. On your turn, you will be playing these cards to move around and do damage and do whatever it is you're doing. But if you start your turn in the same space as an enemy, before you can play your card, you roll your combat die, which is this basic grey one here, and the enemy's combat die, and that's how the enemy fight. They do move around the board a little bit in some of the missions. If you are in their line of sight, then you roll both of these dice, the enemy die and yours. And that simulates kind of an ongoing gun battle that you've got caught into. And then you can, after you've rolled the dice, you apply any damage to yourself and to the enemy, and then you can play your card. So it's not good to get caught into a gun battle because it's going to slow you down, but you do always have that little possibility of doing a little bit of extra damage before you even played your card. And this brings us on to weapon cards. So as you can see here, we've got this weapon card, the Archangel. You get a nice picture of the gun you're using there, so it's like a big revolver. And these symbols, what they actually tell you is what the faces of the die that match this card are. So essentially, the Archangel will use this red die that they're all 6-sided dice. One face does 3 points of damage, and 2 of the faces do 1 point of damage, while the other 3 faces do nothing. So that's this die here that we can see. So this is the reason the game has so many dice, is that the weapons you get will all have a special unique die you roll during these gun battle phases, which I think is a really cool way of handling it. It'd be nice to see a little bit of text telling you what the Archangel is. You know, the Archangel is a gun made by Militech that's really big and uses big bullets, blah, blah, blah. Something like that. You know, a little bit of flavour there. But they're pretty cool, especially because having this diagram of the different dice faces is absolutely essential, because now there will be other red dice in the game, but with different symbols on. So all you need to do is find the die that matches these symbols, and then you know you've got the correct die for the weapon. So that's ongoing gun battles, and it's most of the stuff of how your characters work. So essentially, just to give it a quick rundown, you'll be running around the board using the move icon, opening doors with the orange hand icon, gaining a bit of ram with your green ram icon, taking out guards using the red icon, and your overall objective will be to get to certain places on the board and then play cards to achieve those objectives. Overall, I think the game looks like it's going to be really good, but there are a few nitpicks. So one of them is that, what I was just saying, your missions are mostly going to involve running to a space on the board that has a letter on it and then playing a card of some kind. Maybe doing a few other things, maybe expending some RAM, something like that. it's a little bit lacking in theme, in that run to the space, spend a card. It doesn't bring the theme out very well. Right, so I'm struggling to find a card that lists objectives on it, but I do know one from memory where you had to get to point A, and then you would discard a red card, and that would complete that objective. That's all you had to do mechanically. The name of the objective was take out the sniper. So this was a little bit lame and lacking in theme, because take out the sniper, get to point A, discard a red card. Well, what does that mean? Is there a sniper at point A? Is that what I'm doing? Is that where he is? I'm just running to a space and discarding a card. What these objectives need on these cards is a little bit of flavor text to set the scene. What I would hope to see in the final project is that instead of just saying take out the sniper, it says like something to the effect of, oh, there is a sniper in the building across the street taking pot shots at us. Someone needs to get to a better vantage point and take him down. So now we understand that the character is going to point A to discard that red card and do that. Yeah, it's still mechanically, it's exactly the same, but it builds up that story in your mind that the reason you're going to point A is because that's where you're going to get a better vantage point. It's where you're going to be able to take out that sniper and snipe the sniper and, put an end to it. And further to this, if that objective thematically tied into the gameplay, so there's a sniper shooting at us, what I'd like to see there is a little line of text underneath that says something to the effect of, while this objective is active, each player takes 1 damage at the end of the game round, or something like that, so it gives this gameplay effect of where the sniper is taking shots at you and you're taking damage, and it gives you an incentive to say, well, we need to get that sniper taken out quick, otherwise, he's going to deal us damage over the course of the game. So yeah, that's kind of what I'd like to see. A little bit of flavor text to set the scene. Then, of course, what you do to complete the objective, and what happens mechanically, what gameplay effect that objective has, whether it's once you've completed it or something to incentivize you to complete it quicker. That's really what I'd like to see. I think that would add so much to the theme of this game. Now, we've only got 2 more points to cover, really, and one of them is the add-ons. So we've looked very briefly at the add-ons earlier. The Phantom Liberty one gives you 3 new missions, 3 new characters, and a new boss battle with Kurt Hansen here. I don't have much to say about this. I really like the Phantom Liberty expansion for the video game. It looks like this does some interesting stuff. One of the things to point out and definitely be aware of, you get this miniature for the Cerberus, which was like a drone, a droid, a robot, whatever you want to call it, that appeared in the video game and chased you down. Now, the mission that this robot appears in, Go On Board have stated this is a 1 versus many mission, which I'm not too sure about. So by having one person play as this Cerberus, and the other heroes will have to take it down, I don't know, because it's a fully cooperative game other than that one mission. Everything is designed to be cooperative. And if your gaming group don't like 1 versus many games, well, in that case, that mission's just kind of a waste. It's an interesting idea, but I would have rather see that be fully cooperative, and I do hope they find a way to make that a cooperative mission in the final end product. The Trauma Team expansion is pretty cool, mentioned it earlier. You're just going around in a new game mode as basically militarized hospital workers. It would be nice to see the Trauma Team miniatures be a little bit more individualized. If you look, they're all the exact same pose. In this expansion, you play as the Trauma Team, you play as these miniatures. It would be nice to see more unique sculpts for these guys, just so you can keep track of which one you are. I'm also hoping, I don't think there's anything officially said about this, but I'm also hoping that they're going to have a way to incorporate Trauma Team as enemies on the board as well. You can see they've got their health tracker here. It'd be really cool if you could have a mission where you get kind of into the middle of a firefight and Trauma Team can turn up and start just shooting everyone as they try to save their client or whatever it might be. It should be kind of cool to have another enemy group. Now, the Edgerunners expansion. This is the one that I wanted to save for last to cover. Because Cyberpunk Edgerunners was a really cool anime. I think everyone loved it who is a fan of Cyberpunk. It's definitely what got me interested in Cyberpunk 2077, and they're bringing them here to the board game for you to play as. And they have this interesting mechanic. So I've talked about those coloured cards quite a lot and how each colour relates to a different action. The Edgerunners have an interesting thing where each of the characters only has 3 of the 4 colours available to them, so you really have to work as a team, and you have to find alternate ways to do certain things. But because they lack one colour, they excel in the other colours. So they look like a pretty cool little group to play as. However, these miniatures are ghastly. This is the most disappointing thing I saw about this entire project, was to take these 6 characters from Edgerunners, who are pretty much, I would say, universally beloved by the Cyberpunk 2077 fanbase, and just mess them up so bad. I'm sorry, they look, you know what, I'll say this up front. If these were like 6-inch statues that you put on your shelf for display, then these would be awesome. But as board game pieces, I just do not like them at all. We'll just go over them really quickly. So let's look at David. David's miniature is pretty cool. He's in this running action pose firing his gun. He looks pretty awesome, but he's stuck to this concrete barrier here. Like I say, the bases in this game are too overly scenic, and David's is forgivable. It's really cool, except that concrete barrier. It's like everywhere you move his miniature, he's jumping off this concrete barrier. But I just don't like it when the miniature's base is integral to the miniature itself. Then we've got Maine. Maine is also in this constant jumping pose. It's not too bad. It just looks a little bit wonky. So far, those miniatures aren't too bad. I'm being a bit nitpicky, but yeah, it's just that integration of those bases is a bit too much. Lucy's miniature is actually probably the best one of the lot, in that she is just in this standard kind of pose. There's no issues with her posing. The base isn't integral to her miniature. However, they've sculpted her monowire cyberware in the form of this great big looking ropey type thing that's coming out of her wrists. The monowire upgrade, this thing is so narrow you wouldn't really be able to see it. But to sculpt it onto a miniature, you have to make the plastic really thick. And so it looks like they've tried to do this effect coming off of the wire, of like this sort of wavy spectral kind of effect. And I'll be honest, it just doesn't work. It looks like she's got this giant skipping rope coming out of her arms. Other than that, I think her miniature's pretty much fine. Then, next we have Rebecca. So Rebecca is one of the fan favourites from the anime. And the miniature's okay. It's very... it's full of momentum. You know, she's running full pelt with her guns, got this kind of crazy look on her face. It's very in-fitting with her character. The problem here again is the base. There is so much junk on this base that it's just not needed. It's ridiculous. You've got this great big barrel here and all this like smoke and rocks and everything. And if you look, they've overloaded the base so much that she can't really securely fit onto the base. So in order to support the miniature, they've actually sculpted a muzzle flash coming out of this pistol and hitting the base of the miniature to make like extra support. And if it wasn't for that, this would probably be the best miniature in the bunch. But that muzzle flash looks so silly. Why is she shooting the ground? Like, she's just shooting into the floor right beneath her. You know, some of the main miniatures in the game are a little bit scenic, but it seems like for the Edgerunners, they just went completely overboard on it. Then we've got Pilar. Again, Pilar is in a really cool action pose, but he's constantly jumping over this piece of junk, whatever it is. And the worst thing about him is his hand is planted on this piece of junk he's hopping over. So it's gonna be pretty much impossible to cut him off of that piece of junk. You're not even gonna be able to modify him if you like modelling. And I'm well aware many of you who play these games probably don't like modelling. And then we come on to the absolute abomination that is Kiwi. Kiwi has been sculpted crouched down on top of this Minotaur, this wrecked Minotaur, one of the giant robots. Her base is the wrecked upper half of one of the enemies, and she's squatted on top of it, and it looks absolutely ridiculous. You'll be moving her around the board, sat on top of the head of this Minotaur, which means Kiwi is going to be less than half the height of this entire miniature. It just completely distracts from her. If we look at the artwork of Kiwi stood here like smoking the cigarette with her arms folded, it's got this very tough look to it, it looks cool. That's how they should have sculpted her miniature. This just looks silly. It really is. I don't know what the sculptor was thinking when they thought this will look great as a board game piece. Honestly, I really, really hope Go On Board change these. This is kind of as vain as it is to say that the look of miniatures is my number one issue with this entire project. It kind of is, because I just don't know what they were thinking with these. Anyway, I'm going to stop complaining about how those miniatures look now. Now, the last thing I want to cover is the biggest concerning thing of this entire campaign. This is the bit that will make or break it for many people. This game uses a real-time element. I do like unique and interesting mechanics in games, but most real-time elements I've seen in board games haven't worked. Will Cyberpunk 2077 change that? I don't know, because looking at how it works, it does seem like what I would consider a risky mechanic, seemingly implemented quite well. So we'll just go over quickly how that works, just to give you an idea. So what's going to happen is you will set up the game, and then you and your friends sat around ready to play will discuss your tactics. And then on the app, although it's not necessary to use an app, you can use any form of timer, just the app makes it a little bit more fancy. On the app, you would press play and it would set a timer going for, I don't know how long it's going to be, 2 or 3 minutes, I assume. What they've done here that I think is interesting and could make this mechanic good, it could make it a benefit to the game rather than a drawback, is you do not actually have a turn limit, you have a time limit. So you have 3 minutes, and on your turn, you will play one action card and whatever special abilities you use. Then you will pass to the next player, who will take their turn, and everybody will take their turn, then you'll take your next turn, and you'll go round and round in circles. And you keep doing that until the time runs out. There is no limit to how many actions. It's not you have 2 minutes to each try and play 4 actions, and if you fail to do it fast enough, you get punished by not getting to play all of your actions. Instead, this game takes an approach of rewarding you for faster play. So, if you only manage to perform 2 actions apiece per turn, well, fair enough, that's all you've managed to do. Hopefully it's enough for you to complete the objective, but the more experience you get at the game, the better you get, the more you understand your character, you're going to be able to play turns faster. And that means you're going to be able to get more turns squeezed into that time limit. One of the other things is the card you play, that card might just allow you to move 1 space and open a door. So when you play that card, you'll say, I move here, I open this door, done, next player go. That was what, like 2-3 seconds? Your turn is over so fast that if you're doing lots of little things, you'll get more turns in and it'll allow you to get more done. So what's really cool about that is you shouldn't feel like you've wasted a turn. Even if your turn is literally I gain 1 point of RAM, you've barely done anything, but your turn is over so quick that the next players can go, and if they're doing the same sort of thing, where they're doing a very quick turn that's only taking them like less than 5 seconds, it's going to be back to you. What's also important is if you look at these little icons at the top here, these are game rounds, referred to as fights in this game. And what this is telling us here is we have 5 turns to complete the mission. So you're going to get this timer of, let's say 2 minutes for each game round. So you're going to have 5 turns, each lasting 2 minutes, which means your actual gameplay time of moving pieces around on the board is going to be 10 minutes, which isn't a lot, but that's good for keeping the game at a nice quick pace. And in between those turns, you're going to be able to sit down, level up, collect your loot, and make a plan.
And because the game is structured over these rounds, in this case, from the example here, we can see it's 5 game rounds. I don't think the game will apply as much stress as if it were to say, here's 10 minutes, go, get everything done in 10 minutes. No, you've got 2 minutes of intense play, followed by a bit of relaxation. Yeah, so it's interesting, is this, it is a real-time element, and that is, this could be terrible as well. This could just be a horrible pressure cooker of stress, and you just feel rushed. It all depends on how they balance that timer out. If they make it to force you to be stressed, if they give you just enough time to complete the mission, then it's not going to be enjoyable. If they give you enough time to complete the mission, and if you want to risk going grabbing another bit of loot, but, make sure you're quick about it, that's going to make it, there's going to be pressure, but it's going to be fun. Well, hopefully it's going to be fun anyway. So I do have a big concern over this timer. I do think, looking at the implementation of it, it might be quite good for the game. It might help in some ways, but it also could go the other way. And I think that's going to be the deciding factor for a lot of people of whether they want to play a real-time board game, because, to be honest, I haven't seen it work anywhere else. Anyway, this video has gone on for a ridiculous amount of time. It's far, far too long, and my voice is starting to get a bit sore. So I'm just going to wrap this up real quick. The game looks pretty damn fun, I'd say. I am excited for this, but there's that bit of trepidation about the timer. Would I recommend this to you? Well, if you're a massive fan of Cyberpunk, then you might want to look into it. Either backing it or late backing it or whatever. Yeah, that was the final point as well. Now we're talking about the timer. I mentioned earlier, right at the start of this, all those years ago, you may remember I mentioned about the standard version using tokens, and they should be using standees, and those tokens are going to be bad for gameplay. That's because a token on the board of an enemy is very easy to miss. Sometimes you're just not paying attention, you're in the moment, you don't notice the enemy token on the board. Also, we've all had the situation where you're trying to pick up a token off the board and your fingers keep slipping. In a regular board game, this isn't really an issue, but in a real-time game where you've got to be doing everything quickly, this is bad for gameplay. This is, if you struggle to pick up that token, if your fingers slip, then that's like 1, maybe 2 seconds wasted as you're moving that token off the board, and every second counts. That's one of the main reasons I really recommend getting the premium edition, because you can pick up the miniatures. Things are more tactile. It just seems practically far better, which is unfortunate that the price point is that much higher. The game looks good. Like the gameplay, I like the look of it, I like the mechanics, I like the card play, I like the leveling up of your different skills over the course of a game. My recommendation would be, if you love Cyberpunk and you love board games, and you think you might be okay with a real-time system, then yeah, sure, why not go for it? If you're not a fan of any of those 3 things, you might want to hang back on it. And if the only thing that puts you off is the timer, well, I mean, I've already thought about it. I thought long and hard about it, and I did think the way they've implemented this timer, although it might be a bit of a challenge to do, at least you can come up with a system where instead of using real time, you can limit the amount of cards each player gets to use. You can kind of house rule the game so it doesn't operate on real time. But yeah, it looks cool. It looks cool. I haven't really got anything more to say about it than that. Anyway, that's enough of me talking about this. I've rambled on long enough, so I'll let you get on with your day, and bye.